The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. The topic is AASHTOWare Safety, Accessing Crash Data and AASHTOWare Safety for Ohio. And our presenter, Lauren Miller, is with us from Numetric. She'll be introducing the co-presenters / subject matter experts who are going to be assisting with the webinar. But I'm going to give you a couple of housekeeping items, and then I will turn you over to Lauren. And I didn't mention it before, but this is Victoria Beal with the Ohio LTAP Center. First off, if you have questions throughout the webinar, and we're hopeful that you will have questions and that you'll put them in the question box, we're here to field those questions and get you answers. So the question box will be in the GoToWebinar panel, and you do not have to wait till the end of the webinar to put them in. Please put them in throughout the webinar, especially if you've got a question right then about something that's being presented, because the team will be in the background waiting for your question to get it answered. The second thing we wanted to mention is there is a handout in the handout section of the GoToWebinar panel. If you have an issue downloading it, don't worry. We're going to send you a link to that handout too after the webinar is complete. Along with a link to the handout, I'm hoping we'll be able to send you a link to a recording of this webinar. We are attempting to record it, and as long as the software cooperates, we should be able to send you out that link as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Lauren. It's all yours, Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you, Victoria. Welcome this fine Tuesday morning. Thank you for being here. Like Victoria said, my name is Lauren, and I work for Numetric, which is the traffic safety analytics software provider for AASHTOWare Safety, which is the tool we're going to be going over today. I also have Dave Martin and Greg Olson on the call with me. They are my colleagues here at Numetric. Dave is the customer support manager for the Ohio account, and Greg is the head of our education team, and they'll both be here to help answer any questions you may have and just help make sure we've got a great training. We also have Brenton from Ohio DOT. He's here as well, so he will be a great resource as well to help answer your questions. And you already got to know Victoria. So that's everyone we've got over here. And we are just so thankful that you are taking some time out of your Tuesday to join us, and we are excited to jump into the training. I do want to mention we did host a similar training a couple of weeks ago, early in June. So if you were here at that training, welcome back. If you weren't able to make that, welcome for the first time. I think we probably have a mix of new users and people who've already been in the software before. Both are great. So whether you've never used the tool before or you have a little bit of experience, and this is maybe a refresher for you, either way, we are happy to have you. A little bit about who is invited to this training. We are focusing this training effort on those at the local level, so those working at the cities and the MPOs, the counties, as opposed to the folks who are working at the state DOT level. So we've tried to tailor this training to be a little bit more applicable for those of you who are at the local level. So hopefully you've already got a Crash Query account or AASHTOWare Safety account. Today we're going to be focusing in the Crash Query application. We recommend that you can actually log into the Crash Query tool and follow along with us as we go through this training. So I think, Victoria, if you could share the link, the AASHTOWare Safety login link in the chat, you can go ahead and use that to log into your account and just get it up and ready. And then by the time we're getting into our examples, you can follow along with me. We find that that's a really helpful way to make sure that you're learning and get a little bit of hands-on experience as well. If you need an account, go ahead and yes, Victoria just sent that link as well. Go ahead and click that ODOT link and fill that out. Brenton is here on the call, and he's the one who those requests go to, so he's monitoring that. So if you fill that out, we will be able to get you an account set up while we're on this call. So if you need help with your account, go ahead and let us know as well. You can put a question in, so if your account is locked or anything like that, let us know here in the question box, and we can get that taken care of for you as well. So awesome. Oh, and thank you, Victoria, for sharing the CAM tool training link. Yes, that is a great plug. So the first part of this training, when we get into Crash Query, I'm going to show you guys how to get the crash query template to download raw data to put into the CAM tool, but that's as far as we'll be taking the training today with the CAM tool. But a few months ago, we actually went through a whole training with CAM tool, and that recording is available at that link Victoria just shared in the chat. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and bookmark that, and just keep in mind that we will only be showing the first part of how to do that in Crash Query and not actually taking you through the CAM tool training. So I just want to make sure you guys have that link. And like Victoria mentioned, ask your questions as we go along. We've got David, Greg, and Brenton here to help me answer questions, and they are also authorized to interrupt me as well, and we can answer your question live if you missed where I clicked a certain button or you don't understand something that I've showed in the demo, or perhaps they can just type a response to you. But we definitely encourage you to ask questions as we go along, so we make sure that we get those answered within context, right? And so we're not waiting till the end. That said, we do have an hour and a half scheduled for today, and if this training goes like the last one, we did have about 15-20 minutes at the end of this training just dedicated to questions. So if you have a question that maybe you want to save till the end, it's a little longer one, feel free, because we do have some time built in today to get to some of those longer questions. So awesome. Without further ado, I am going to go ahead and talk about crash queries. So this will be the last slide we show before we jump into the application, and the rest of the training will be opening up the crash query tool, and it'll be a live demo of how to use it. But before we do that, I want to just give a little sneak peek of what crash query looks like. So if you've already used the tool, this looks familiar to you, but essentially, the crash query application allows users to run custom queries, and it displays those crash results in real time. So you can, use the filters to narrow down your search area. You can actually download reports out of Crash Query. This is an example of a report, and you see it has the nice little ODOT logo at the top. And you can get more information on a certain crash here in the crash flyout. So a really great tool when working with crash data. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the presentation, and we are going to open up Crash Query. So if you've had a chance to log in, go ahead and make sure that you are in the Crash Query application. By default, Crash Query will open up by default, if you're signing into AASHTOWare, it's going to open up into the Crash Query application. So this is what you should be seeing. And if you've never logged in before, the default view is going to be this heat map over the state of Ohio. And even if you have logged in before, but you've never changed your map settings, this is what you'll be seeing. So this is going to be a heat map of all the crashes. And if you zoom in, you'll notice that that heat map actually breaks out into these little crash clusters. So these different little dots. And as you zoom in more, you'll see that they break down even smaller. And this is where we get into the individual crashes. So you'll notice these are color coded. Down here in the bottom left is going to be a key for what that's showing you. The color is correlated to the injury severity of the crash. So we have the red dots, unfortunately, are fatal injury crashes, and the blue dots are property damage only crashes, with the A, B, and C crashes being between like a reddish, orange, and yellow crash dots. So keep in mind that the color of these crash dots is correlated to the injury severity. And if you ever forget which one is which, the key down here in the bottom left, that's going to stay on your map at all times. So you can always reference that if you need to remember. Another couple of things, like I mentioned, this is the default view with the heat map and the crash clusters, but if you would like to see the dots even all the way zoomed out, you can actually change your visualization. So to do that, you're going to come up here to the top right of the map where you see this little gear icon. That's going to take you into your map settings. So we'll go ahead and click there. And here you can change the map visualization from the heat map and clusters view into the dots. So we'll click that and we'll show how that will change. And now, instead of the heat map, you'll see those individual crash dots throughout the entire time. So you'll notice, though, if you look at the top little filter bar, or sorry, not filter bar, the top little toolbar here, this is going to show you how many crashes are displayed on your screen. So with the dots, we only have the capability to display 1,000 of those crash dots on one screen. But as you zoom in, you'll notice more dots populate because this is now a new screen. So we're showing this is now 1,000 here. And if you zoom in far enough, you'll get to the exact number as long as it's under 1,000. So now this is showing us the 936 crashes that are showing up on my screen. So just a little plug, like I mentioned, the map settings, that is actually saved. So whatever changes you make in map settings, the next time you open Crash Query, it'll remember those changes. So if you'd rather keep it in the dots view, you can just select that setting now, and every time you open up Crash Query, it's going to remember this person likes to view the crash dots. If you leave it on heat map, it'll remember this person likes to see it on the heat map. So just keep that in mind. Another couple controls here are the switch to satellite and auto zoom. So we haven't really seen auto zoom in action, but I'm going to leave that turned on for now. That comes into play a little bit later, but it can be really handy when applying location filters. It'll zoom you right to the location you've entered. Although, like with everything, there are use cases where sometimes auto zoom can be a little frustrating. So that would be when you'd want to come into your map settings and turn that off. For example, if you're working with a polygon tool, it can be frustrating because it'll always zoom you out. And so just remember, if you ever find yourself frustrated with auto zoom, you can turn it off. Just come in here to the map settings and toggle that off. The switch to satellite, if you zoom in far enough, you'll see that the map view switches to a satellite view. If you don't want that to happen and you'd rather keep it in the map view, no matter how far zoomed in you are, you can toggle that off as well. And again, any settings that you change here are going to be remembered the next time you open the application. So you can change these settings to whatever you would like, but for today, I'm just going to leave it in dots, and I'll leave the satellite off as well. So then you click the little X up here in the top right, and now we've closed the little map settings flyout. All right, a couple of other things I want to touch on the application before we jump into our examples. You'll notice over here, we've been zooming in around the map a couple of times, but you'll notice over here in the metrics sidebar, these numbers are not going to change when we zoom in on the map. You actually have to apply a filter for these metrics sidebar, for the metrics sidebar to update. So by default, we are going to be showing you the entire state of Ohio. So right now, you'll look at these metrics. This is showing you for the entire state of Ohio for whatever dates you have in. So you can always check the date range of the crash population you're looking at. Up here in the top right, you'll notice this is showing us from January 1st of 2020 through December 31st of 2024. You can change the dates just by clicking in here and selecting whatever dates you would like. By default, I believe it is showing us this 2020 to 2024, but you can edit that. You can go all time. That's going to show you data all the way back from 2008, or you can select a specific window of time by clicking this little edit button under the other. So for this example, we're just going to leave the dates as they are, but keep in mind you can always change the dates for the you can always change the dates that you're looking at for your queries. So like I mentioned, the metric sidebar, even though I'm zooming in over here on the map, you'll notice these metrics don't change. That's because they need to have a filter applied for those metrics to change. So a couple of different ways you can add a filter. The most obvious being up here in the top filter bar, you'll see this add filter button. We're going to be using that a lot. That's pretty much how the application works. You've got to come up here and add a filter, and that's going to be how you narrow down your search area. For now though, let's say I did want to look at just everything. I'm wishing that the map would talk to the metric sidebar, right? I am curious about what these metrics are showing just for this area I've zoomed in onto. That's where you're gonna want to come over here again on this little map toolbar where we got into map settings. If you go a little bit further down, the third from the bottom, you'll notice this filter to view button. If you click that, that's just going to place, and there's the auto zoom in action. So maybe we'd want to turn that off, but that's just going to place a polygon over whatever you've got showing on the map. So you'll see it place this nice little triangle for me. And now that I have a filter applied, because you'll notice when you use the polygon tool or the filter to view, it's going to actually add that polygon as a filter in your filter bar. You'll notice now the metrics have updated. Now these metrics are showing me just the metrics for these crashes within my polygon. So I can now scroll down here and it's going to be filtering to view just the crashes that show up in this area that I have placed the polygon. So that is a really important thing to remember, that you have to apply filters. Now, let's say that I want to get rid of this. How do I get rid of the polygon? I can come up here and I can simply exit out. And now I'm going to be starting over. And that was a perfect example of auto zoom as well. So if that is frustrating to you, you might want to turn off auto zoom now, because it will zoom you back out to the entire state view. So I'm going to pause here and make sure we don't have any questions. Okay, I don't see any questions. We are going to get into our first example. So I'm going to be showing you, like I mentioned earlier.
Lauren, I'm sorry. I struggle with the mute button. We actually did have a question come in that I wanted to bring up really quick.
Yeah.
The question got asked, how often is the crash data updated? So if you could just kind of talk through the like the most recent crash data that we have and kind of what that cadence is, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and Brenton, jump in too, but if I'm saying something wrong, but you can see that we actually do have crash data in the system as recent as June 7th of this year. The caveat being, obviously it's so recent, it hasn't necessarily been through the proper auditing and all that. So I do think the recommendation is to still stick with the December 31st, 2024, since that data has been cleansed and looked through and all of that validated. But if you are wanting to see crashes as recent as June 7th, you can do that. And you can come in here and you can edit that and you can bring it all the way into 2025. Maybe you don't even have to go, well, that hasn't happened yet. So we'll have to change it from December to June, and you can look at crashes as recent as the 7th. I'm going to go ahead and apply. And now you'll see these are going to update and pull in any crashes that have happened in 2025 to date.
I'll just jump in and say that ODOT gets crash data from DPS weekly. So we do a weekly update. Sometimes the transfer goes okay, sometimes it doesn't. So it can be as recent as a week, if not a couple weeks. And like Lauren said, the most recent calendar year worth of crashes, just keep in mind that it hasn't been fully audited as much as we try to. But yeah, so just keep that in mind when you're looking at the current year's crashes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brenton. Okay, awesome.
And I saw the time frame on there actually says 2008. Although there are some crashes from 2008 to 2011, those years we should probably just delete those out because they're not full sets of data. So 2012 and beyond is reliable crash data.
Awesome. Good to know. Thank you, Brenton. All right. We are going to jump in to our first example, which I mentioned earlier. We're going to show you how to access the GCAT template from within Crash Query. And this is what you'd want to use if you're looking to download data out of Crash Query and then upload that into that CAM tool. So Victoria did share the link to the CAM tool training. So if you want more information after this point, that's where you're going to want to go. But I do want to show you how to access that GCAT template. So to access your library of saved queries, so not just this template, but anything you're saving or anything that's been shared with you, you're just going to come up here to the top and see that little home icon next to where it says Crash Query. If you click that, that's going to take you into your library of saved queries. So anything that's been shared with you or anything that you've saved yourself is going to show up here in this library. Over here on the left hand, you can see there's this little GCAT category. So if we click that, this is where the GCAT template lives. And if you click into it, it's going to open up that template. Now we're not done yet. This is just the template, so this is shared with everybody. It would not make sense if we allowed everybody to edit the template. So what you're going to want to do is make a copy of this template. So we've opened the template. You can see now up here at the top, this is always going to tell you the name of the query you're in. So if you're in an unsaved query, this is going to say new crash query. If you've opened a query like this one, for example, it's just going to have the name up here. So now we know we're in the GCAT template. But we're going to want to make a copy, and to do that you're going to come over here to the top right hand side. So once you're in a saved query, you'll notice these little options next to the date range are different. We now have the ability to make a copy of the query, we can share it, and we can add it to our favorites. So when you're in an unsaved query, these options don't show up, but now that we've opened the template, we have this option to make a copy. So over here in the top right, go ahead and click that make a copy, and now I can name it whatever I want. So maybe I'm just going to name it cam tool example, and I can save it in, I'll just make a new category. What is the date? June 17th, training, and I'll make sure that we capitalize June. And I'm going to go ahead and save my copy. And when you make a copy, the system will automatically pull you into the copy you've made. So now we can see we're in our copied template. So up here it says cam tool example. So make sure you've made that copy and it doesn't still say the GCAT template up there. So now that I've made the copy, I am free to do whatever I want in here. I can add my filters in, I can change my metrics, or well, no, you can't change the metrics in the raw table, but I'll get to that. So now we're in the copied template, and I can add the filters that I want. So I can narrow down my search area, I can add my location, I can add crash type, whatever it is I want to look at, whatever data I'm looking to get. Let's say I just would like to do, we'll just throw a county filter on there. We just want to look at the crashes in Adams County. And now I want to take this into the CAM tool. So what you're going to want to do is come over here to the raw table. And it's very important that you do not change the columns here, because that's what the template is for. So within this template, you'll notice it didn't look very different than another query, but what is different is how the columns are organized here in the raw table, and they are set up to work with the CAM tool. So that's why if you were to do this with just a new query and you don't copy the template, the raw table columns are not going to be set up, and it will definitely not work as expected when you get into the CAM tool. So now that I have everything I want, I'm going to come over here into the raw table, and I'm just going to click download, and that's going to download the raw table for me, and I can take that CSV and I'll use that to do the CAM tool, and that's where this example is going to stop here. But if you would like further instruction on how to use the CAM tool and all of that, that's available at the link Victoria shared a little bit earlier in the chat. So I want to make sure that we just touch on a couple of things because it's so important. I'm just going to go through that again really quickly. So first, you'd come in here to your home icon. This is going to bring you into your library of saved queries. You're going to find the template that says GCAT format. It's also saved on the left under the category GCAT. You would click into here, make a copy of this, and then this is where you would be doing adding any of your filters, and then you're going to come into the raw table and then click download. And just another plug here where it says hide and show columns, do not change those when you are attempting to download the data for the purpose of uploading it into the CAM tool, because that will mess up the columns. So do not change any of these columns here. Ignore this button, simply download the data and then take it into the CAM tool. Another plug there as well, make sure that you have the date ranges that you want as well before you download that data, and any filters applied. All right, awesome. I am going to now get into our next example. So if you were following along with that, to open a new query, a couple of different options. You can either come down here in the applications menu and simply just reload the application by clicking crash query. You can also click that home icon again, and up in the top right, you'll see the option to create a new crash query. So whatever you'd like to do, go ahead and do that. So either by refreshing the page, by reopening crash query, or clicking home and selecting new crash query, but make sure you're not in the template anymore. We want just a fresh start for our next example. So we've reloaded, we have a new query, and you can always check what query you're in up here at the top. It's going to have that title. So by default, they're all just named new crash query. A little plug here, if you are going to be in this tool a lot and saving a lot of different queries, I highly recommend naming them something specific and not just new crash query 1, new crash query 4. That will get real confusing when you try to open up those queries again. So just have a good little best practice around naming your queries. So, all right, for this example, we are curious at looking at how pedestrian-related crashes have changed in the city of Cleveland during the summer from 2022 to 2023. That's the question I'm looking to answer coming into the tool. So maybe we're working with the local community leaders or law enforcement. We want to do outreach campaign, right, as we're coming into the summer months. And so we are looking to track those pedestrian crashes in the summer months. And I'm curious to see how they've gone in years past. And that's why I want to actually look at how they changed from 2022 to 2023. So I'm coming in here and I want to show the trend of ped crashes in the summer months over time. So how do I do that, right? I'm coming in here to a blank query. I know the first thing I want to look at, I want to just look at the crashes that are happening in Cleveland. So I'm going to come up here to my filter bar, and we're going to start by just adding the city geo filter, and we're going to show Cleveland. Now I know Brenton is going to want me to touch on this, so I will take this opportunity now. As you were adding that filter, you might have noticed there's another filter called the ODOT City Village Township. If you click on that, you'll notice that also has cities as well. Both would pull up crashes in Cleveland, and you might be wondering what are the differences between the geo filter and the non-geo filter. So I'm going to cover that now. And we also do have an article on our Help Center, so I can share that as well with Victoria, and she can share that in the chat with you. But basically, the geo filter that I've applied now, you'll notice it also adds a polygon, so you have this little outline of the city, and you can see all the crashes there. If you were to add the other one, it's going to probably show you a similar crash map, right? The dots are probably going to be pretty similar, but it's not going to have that outline. And the difference is the geo filter is using the geo point to show you crashes. So any crashes that have a geo point, so the lat long, is showing in the official city boundaries of Cleveland. This filter is going to show you those crashes. If you were to use the other filter, that is going to be using what was written in the crash report. So those are the two, that's the difference between these two filters. So keep in mind, sometimes the officer might think they are in Cleveland, but they're actually in a neighboring city and it's technically outside the Cleveland boundaries. But in the crash report, it still said Cleveland. If you were to use that filter, it's going to pull up any crashes that have Cleveland in the crash report. The geo filter is looking at the actual geo point of where the crash occurred and only showing you those crashes that took place within those city boundaries. Now, we have different types of geo filters. This is just the city one, but if you come up here to the filter bar and select, type in geo, you can see we also have a county geo filter. We have one for MPOs, ODOT districts, school district. We have several different geo filters. And just keep in mind the geo filters, that's based on the geo point of the crash, right? Versus the other filters. So for example, the other city filter is this ODOT City Village Township. That's based on the crash report. I am going to share the link to our Help Center article that talks about geofilters. I'm going to go ahead and share that with Victoria here in the chat, and she can send that out to you just so you have for reference. But that is a really common question that we get, so I want to make sure that we touch on that. All right. Back to our example. So if you'll remember, we're looking at, we want to look at pedestrian related crashes in the summer in Cleveland. So we are getting closer. Now we're looking at all the crashes that have taken place in Cleveland. I am only interested in the pedestrian crashes. So I'm going to come back up to the filter bar and I'm going to type in pedestrian, and we are going to find the pedestrian involved filter. And sometimes you'll notice it will briefly bring in the results from the previous filter. That's okay, just give it a second to load. And now we're going to click yes. So now I am looking at all of the crashes in Cleveland that were pedestrian involved. And I want to point out to how our filters interact with each other. So up here in the filter bar, you can always see the filters you've added here. So it's always good to check what filters you've got so you know what crash population you're looking at. So up here, we've got Cleveland and we've got pedestrian involved. When filters are added separately, so these are two separate filters, these interact together with an and relationship. So what this is doing is it's pulling up the crashes that are in Cleveland and that were pedestrian involved. If I were to use a different filter, like within the values of the filter, that would populate, that would have an or relationship. So if we added another city in here, this is now going to show us these two are operating with an or. Anything that's within the results of a filter, so the values within, they have an or relationship. But when they're two separate filters, like these two are here, they're always going to operate together as an and. The other thing I want to point out, as you'll see, we've got the operator here as equals on both of these, and that's correct for this example, but there may be times where you actually want to do the opposite. So maybe you want to look, for some reason, you would like to look at crashes that have happened across the state of Ohio in every city except for Cleveland. You can do that by simply clicking on the operator and changing that equal sign to an is not. And then that's going to show you everything outside of Cleveland. So that's one option. And here you could do the same thing here, but it wouldn't make much sense with the pedestrian involved because you can simply just click no. All right.
Lauren, had a question come in on this topic of filters, kind of stacking filters.
Yes.
Brian asked the question, if you have two overlapping filters, will the tool double count crashes within the filters? And you did a great job of kind of explaining that relationship between them, the and or relationship. Just to kind of stress one point, there's not a time we will ever double count a crash. So there is no combination of filters or anything that will get us to count a crash more than once when we're looking at that crash data. So just kind of keep that in mind. Like if it's a pedestrian involved crash and an alcohol involved crash, like it was an alcohol involved crash where they struck a pedestrian, if I put both of those filters in there, it's not going to count that crash twice. It's just going to count that crash because it meets the filter criteria. So I just wanted to kind of stress that double counting thing. So
yes, thank you, Greg. That is a really, really good call out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And
great question.
Quick, there's a couple more questions. Once Lauren wraps up with this example, we'll hit these other questions. This was just relevant to the filters you were talking about right there. Keep the questions coming in the chat, guys. It's great. We've got some good stuff in here. So
awesome. Thank you, Greg. Yeah, when we get through this example, like Greg mentioned, I'll take a pause and we can address the other questions that have come in. All right, awesome. So now we're getting closer to what we were wanting to look at. Now we're looking at pedestrian crashes in Cleveland, but I was only interested in those crashes that took place over the summer months. So I can actually come back up to the filter bar and I can narrow it down even further by looking specifically at the month of year. So you can come up here, type month, and find the one that says parentheses month of year. You can see a couple of these, they're all the same. So pick which one you want. So we're going to go ahead and let that load. And I was only interested in the crashes happening in the summer months. So I'm just going to narrow that down. I'm just going to do July, June, and August. I'm going to apply that, and this is going to update now and show me just those pedestrian crashes that are happening in the summer months in Cleveland. And now I've gotten pretty close to what I was wanting to look at. So now I can see this is giving me a good idea of the crashes that are happening in Cleveland. I can see where they're happening, but I also wanted to do a couple more things. So there were a couple things I wanted to do. I wanted to show how these crashes are trending over time. And I also wanted to compare specifically 2 years. I wanted to look specifically how pedestrian crashes changed from 2022 to 2023. So how do I do that? So I'm going to first come in here to my chart builder. So over here, you'll see metrics, chart builder, and raw table. We've already been in metrics today. I've showed you raw table. Now we're going to come to the middle one, which is chart builder. And you're going to click on that tab, and over on the right hand side is this little plus sign icon. That's how you're going to actually get into build the chart. So click that plus icon from within the chart builder, and we're just going to do a line chart because I want to have a visual for how these crashes are trending over time. So I'm going to click line chart. I'm going to come in here for measure. I'm going to do crash count, and I'm going to find the year filter. So crash, so parentheses year. And now this is going to pull up the crashes, but you'll see by default these years are out of order. We've got the sorting to measure by default. So come over here on the right hand side, click that drop down for sorting, and we're just going to change that to grouping. And now we're going to see those years show up in order. There they go. And then you'll notice it's only going back to 2020. That's because it's following the date range that I have set. So if we were to change this date range up here, all of the charts we've built are going to automatically update as well. I'm going to come down here to the vertical axis. You can actually label those. So now those are counting crashes, and down here is showing our year. I'm going to save this chart. And now it's going to show up under chart builder. We should name it, right? This is where we get into the best practices. So you can name it either by clicking this little pencil icon. That's going to bring you back into the chart builder. You can also name it just from within this view. If you just click where it says untitled chart, you can click in there and we can type in our name. We want to call that crash trends. And now I have my chart, and already I'm learning some interesting information where we had a pretty significant decrease in 2023, and then we're seeing a little uptick in 2024. So that's interesting. And obviously not surprising to see the lower in 2020. That makes sense. That was a weird year. So if I wanted to get a little more data, I could come up here to my date range. Maybe I want to look back to the year before, 2019. So I can come up here, change that to 2019, apply that, and you'll notice the chart's going to automatically update for me. And that's the case for any of the charts that you build. They're going to follow the rules of whatever date ranges you have set, and they're going to update as you change them. All right. Now I have learned a lot, right? I've gotten pretty close to what I wanted. I've accomplished some of the things. I've showed the trend over time, but I also wanted to compare to specific years. So how do I do that? That's where we're going to want to download one of our report options. So if you come up here next to the date extents, and actually I'm going to take a pause here because I have broken a very important rule. I have not saved this query. This is where you can get into trouble. I have taken all this time to build out this query. If my technology decided to stop working for me, which never happens, right? We've all had that where our computer decides to reload. Everything I've done would be erased. It'd be wiped away because the system would think, oh, you just want a new query, right? It's not going to save it unless you have told it, hey, I want to save this one. So we're going to pause here before the comparison report, and I'm going to show you how to save a query. Up here in the top right, you'll see this nifty save button. If you click that, this is where you can save your queries, and this is where I recommend to actually put a name in here versus just a new crash query. So we're going to do ped crashes in Cleveland. And I'm going to just save that to that training folder I made earlier. Oh, look, we have all of you guys made one as well. That's awesome. I think mine was the June 17th. Let's see. Training. And I can only see that because I'm an admin in here. So don't worry. I don't think anybody can see all your queries. So I'm going to save that to the training. Just a little note. I will go in and save any of the queries I've shown today. I'm going to put them in a specific folder, and those will be available to everybody. I'm going to share them with everybody who has an account, and that means that'll show up in your library of saved queries. So just a little plug, all the queries we're going through today, you will be able to access. All right, so I've saved my query. that is a very, very important thing. And now that it's saved, you'll notice we've got the title up here and those options have popped up. So if I wanted to share this with someone, I can easily do that within here. If I can do that now, I can share that with everybody. And I can say, hey, I just want you guys to have view access. And now that's shared out. I can add this one to my favorites. I can make a copy. The list goes on and on, right? We've got a little more options now that we've saved it. Okay, now that we've saved our query, we have not wasted our time. If my computer decided to reload, wouldn't be a big deal. I could just open up the query. All right, we're going to come in and do a comparison report, like I mentioned. So up here next to the dates, you'll see this download button. If you click that, it's going to bring up the 3 report options that we have here in Crash Query. So we've got a summary report, a comparison report, and an over-representation report. I'm going to be doing a comparison report because I want to compare 2 dates. So I'm going to click comparison, and I wanted to look at 2022. So I'm going to come in here and put January 1st of 2022, end that at the end of the year of 2022, click done, and I wanted to compare it to the year 2023. Now you'll notice it was really nice to me. It said, hey, you've put 2022 in for your first date range. We've actually matched that length and we've automatically put 2023 for your second date range. That happened because I had this little check mark box clicked, and that's gonna match the length of date range 2 to date range 1. So it's going to just take a guess at the year, but it's going to match those 2 together. Say I wanted to look at 2024. Now it's easier. I could just come in here and change the year versus having to change all the dates. So that's a nice little feature. I'm going to come here and click Create Report. You can pick any date ranges you want, though. So we are comparing 2 full years to each other. You could look at just a month. You could look at a specific week in time. Maybe you're wanting to track, the month of July year over year. You can do any 2 dates you want. You could do a single day, anything you want. So we've got the dates we want, and we're going to go ahead and click Create Report. And this is going to pull up the comparison report for us. So now we are able to, at a glance, really quickly see how crashes have changed from 2022 to 2023. Now, we pulled this report in the query we've already built, so the report is going to follow any of the rules you've told it to. So it's going to have our filters applied. So we're only looking at the pedestrian crashes, we're only looking at Cleveland, and we're only looking at these summer months. So now you can see at a glance, crashes actually decreased by 10 from 2022 to 2023. However, there was an increase. There was one more fatal crash. You can see down here, we've got this top differentiators. This is going to show you the plus and minus, the ones that had the biggest swing. So down here, you can see there was actually a decrease in the serious injury suspected crashes, but there was an increase in the injury possible crashes. So that's going to show you at a glance the things that changed the most, and any of the other metrics that you've added are going to show up here as well. So for this example, we didn't actually change our metrics. We kept the default metrics, but those are editable. So you can change those within your query, and we'll show you how to do that in our next example. But whatever changes you make within the query are going to pull up in your report here. All right. So this is the comparison report. I've now accomplished what I set out to do. I can save and download this report up here in the top right by clicking that save and download button. This is going to save a PDF to your computer and download it. And it's also going to save, and it tells you here, it's going to save this into your reports within the application. So if I come back out here and I come down to the application menu by clicking up in top left-hand screen, you see the little drop down. This is going to take you to the apps menu. You'll see this reports. Any reports that you've saved within the application, you can go into your reports. They're going to be there, and you can re-download the PDF from there. And that's also where we get into why naming your files are so important. So if everything was just named new crash query, it's going to be pretty difficult to remember what that is when you go to pull up the query or you go to re-download that report. All right. I'm going to pause here, and we are going to take a minute to let Greg let us know what the questions we've been getting are, and we're going to answer those here.
All right. Let's see here. So we had a couple questions around data availability. So Brenton, you might want to help out with this one. We had a question that said, is all the crash data that was previously included in GCAT now included in AASHTOWare Safety?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. That was my assumption. I just didn't want to assume as much. So it looks like Andrew asked this question. He said that he's looking at a study at a location. It had 18 crashes, but the location's now only showing 9. If you're doing like an A/B comparison like that, Andrew, between GCAT and AASHTOWare Safety, and you're not getting the results you'd expect, just shoot us an email and let us know. We'd be happy to kind of hop on a call with you really quick and figure out what's going on with that right there. So you can reach us at support@newmetric.com. Lauren's got that pulled up right here. Again, absolutely happy with these kind of questions. It's usually good to do like a working session. And we can just take 10, 15 minutes and kind of work through it and see if we can figure out what's going on there. But great question, Andrew. It should have all the same data in there for you. We had another question. Michael asked when we were talking about doing like a location analysis in the CAM tool, do we have to create a copy for each location that we're going to analyze with the CAM tool, or will it carry through? So we did a training a little bit ago on how to use the saved query to populate the data for the CAM tool. You don't necessarily need to save a new version of your query for your location for the CAM tool analysis. I would recommend it. You don't have to, but it is just kind of a best practice. That way, if you ever need to kind of pull that data up again in the future, you kind of don't have to rethink your work. You can go and pull up exactly what you downloaded before. So hopefully that helps. Great question. Great question, Michael. Jay asked a question around the chart builder. Said that in my chart, the years are not in order. Do we have an example, Lauren, where you're going to go through the chart builder a little bit later, or?
Yeah, we were in the chart builder here, so I can show you. I apologize. Who asked that question?
Jay.
Jay. Okay, so Jay, what you're going to want to do is come back in to edit your chart, or if you want to get back to this screen. If your years are showing up out of order, you're going to come up to the right-hand side where it says sorting. If you click that, it's going to drop down options, and you're going to want to change the sort by from measure to grouping. So by default, it's going to show measure, and that would cause the years to be out of order. But we're going to change that to grouping, and that would put the years in order.
Yeah, and I have a hard time measure and grouping. I'll be honest with you guys, it means nothing to me. But if you go back in, Lauren, to that screen really quick. If you look over on the left side of the screen, you'll see measure is the crash count and grouping is the date and time. So I'll be honest, I've been training on this application for 10 years. I know it inside out, backwards, and blindfolded. I still have to look over to the left side there to remind myself what's the measure and what's the grouping. So yeah, just if you want to rank it by the count, meaning you're going to go from like smallest count to highest count or highest count to lowest count, then you have your sorting on a measure. But if you want to go by your grouping, in this case year, then yeah, change that one. So sorry, you did a great job, Lauren. I just wanted to call out the how to remember the difference between measure and grouping. So
no, absolutely, very good call out and very good question. It can definitely, it's not super intuitive, that part. All right.
Can you stay in that chart window right there? Sorry.
Yes.
We have another, excuse me, we have another question. Is there a way to change the range of the vertical axis on the chart? So for example, I want the y-axis to go from 0 to 100. So there is not, like if you'll see right here in this line chart, that bottom line is 40. There's not actually a way to say, hey, I want the bottom of my chart to be 0. In the line chart, it's just going to always show as the lowest value will be the lowest value displayed. But if you change this chart type, Lauren, over to a bar chart, excuse me, I'm going to cough here for just a second. Sorry about that. So if you go to a bar chart, by default, the bar is always going to have 0 be the bottom. So that's just a design element. Line charts, the bottom is always going to be the lowest value. Bar charts, the bottom is always going to be 0. So you may want, like, looking at a different chart type, Miriam, might help you with that. But there's not a way to change the line chart axis to be 0 at the bottom. So good question. We got a lot of questions coming in. I love this. Sorry, Lauren, we're just going to take a little question break here.
No problem.
Patrick asks, is there a quick reference guide or manual or cheat sheet on the procedures to use?
Yes.
Yeah. Lauren, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming we're just going to show them the help center.
Yep.
So we do have a help center. We did share an article earlier that talked about the geo filters. There's a lot more articles, and there are even articles specific to Ohio's instance. But to access the help center, you'll come up here on the main crash query page, and you can click this little question mark, and that's going to take you to the crash query app overview, which is essentially a written version of this training, and it goes over all of the features available. And as you can see, there's a lot. So we may not necessarily get to every feature here, but if you open up this article, this is a great reference, and you can look at the different things that it can do, and it's organized nicely. You can see the different headings. So if you forget how to change your map settings, you can reference this here, and all of that. So very good question. And again, to find that link, you can find it from within Crash Query. That's what this little question mark is going to take you to the Help Center. And that's going to open up the specific article for the application you're in. But if you want to just go to the Help Center, once you're here, you can navigate around to our different collections. Also down here in the application drop down, we also have another link to the Help Center, and that just takes you to the main page of the Help Center.
Yeah, perfect, Lauren. Yeah, Patrick, I think that what Lauren showed, that question mark, that's probably, if I had to say, do we have a quick reference guide, that would be it. But if you want more detailed information, the rest of the help centers can have a lot of that info for you. So yeah. We had a question here. When talking about the comparison report, excuse me, can you add a third date range? No, the comparison report is just in 2 time periods right now. You do have in the question here, there's kind of a second clause that says, or are you able to compare to an average of your choosing? So you actually can, and I'm not entirely sure what you mean by an average of your choosing. So if you want to, Aubrianne, if you want to kind of hop into a little more clarification, that'd be great. But you actually can compare dissimilar time periods. So if I want to compare 3 years to 1 year or 1 year to 3 years, we actually do annualize those values for you. So you don't have to compare a year to a year. You can compare dissimilar time periods, and it will normalize those for you.
Yeah.
Perfect. And honestly, you can even do like a couple months. Like, it doesn't have to be years. If you want to do like, maybe let's compare last summer to, this summer or something like that. You can compare whatever periods you'd like that. But yeah, it is limited to those 2 time periods. So perfect. Let's see here. Okay, Ryan asked if you could run through how to create a report again. We did just kind of show that really quickly there. Again, that's just the download. Perfect. Awesome. Sorry, we had a couple more come in, so let me just hit these really quick and then we can go back, Lauren. So it said, in the past, when I selected a crash, the link would populate where I could click on the link. So Michael, are you referring to the crash report? I'm assuming you're referring to the crash report link. That is a known bug. We had a release come out about 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately, it did break that crash report link showing up in the flyout. You'll see there's the spot. There's just nothing to click on.
There's a workaround too for now.
Yeah, if you want to run through that, Lauren.
And this is, I think this is getting fixed. I want to say like this week, like very soon. But anyway, so until that is fixed, there is a workaround, like I mentioned. So say it's this crash that I want. It's actually available in the raw table, and you can just draw a polygon over the specific crash that you want, so that the only column that shows up is that crash. And then you see the link is just this first column here after the crash ID. So then you can click that link and that would take you to the crash report. That's just a workaround, but we expect for the flyout link to be fixed very, very soon.
And then the last question here is from Pong, who asked, is there a way to compare the crash rates on 2 or 3 street segments? And Pong, there is, but that's another application that we are going to be doing some training on in the future, which is our network screening applications. So once we launch those and get those out, roll those out across Ohio, we'll absolutely do some training on that and show you how you can compare crash rates on segments through the network screening application. But, yeah,
Definitely.
Lauren, that's all the questions we've got for now. So
thank you, Greg.
Yeah, back to you.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Keep those questions coming. We're happy to answer them. This first example, I did everything I wanted to, so we are going to move into our next example. So again, to open up a new query, you can either refresh the screen, click in here and reload crash query, click home to your library, and click new crash query, however you want to do it. But open up a new crash query and we're going to get into our second example. Or I guess it's our third example since we did the GCAP. But anyway, we're going to be building a report. We want to look at crashes that have happened near schools in Dayton. That's what I'm trying to do. I want to just look at all of the crashes that are happening near the schools in my city. So a couple of different ways to do this. First, we're going to want to just be looking at the city of Dayton, so that can be a good place to start. Come back up here, add that city filter again. We're going to just be using the geo one. Apply that. That's going to take me right to the city of Dayton. There's also a nifty feature that I'm going to show you. It's over here in the map toolbar. So underneath map settings, which we were going through earlier, you'll find layer settings. And if you click that, this is going to pop up layer options that you can apply on the map. So for this one, maybe it would be helpful as I'm building this report out to throw the school district layer on. And when I apply that layer, this is actually going to overlay the school district boundaries on the map. And let me give it just a second to think about that. We'll drop that filter. There it goes. There it goes. Okay. So now this is showing me the school district boundaries in Ohio. And if I hover over one of these lines, it's actually going to tell me the name of the school district. So I can see this is the Northridge local school district. Over here we have the Mad River local school district, and if you hover on any of those lines, it's going to tell you the name of that school district. So that can be helpful as we're going through this example to see, to make sure which schools, as we're finding the schools, if they're actually within the school district. For this example, again, like if you're looking at the school district, you can use this as your guide, but maybe you're not going by the school district, you just want those crashes within the city boundaries of Dayton, and then you could leave that geo filter on here. So just a neat little feature to show you the different layers that are available, and you'll notice they don't change any of our metrics. They're not applied as a filter. They're just a visual tool, so they don't actually change what you're looking at. They just show you some different boundaries to look at. So we've got school district, counties, regions, township, also asset data, and some other things in here. So again, that is the layers. So if you come here, layers is the second setting down underneath that map toolbar, right underneath map settings. Over here is layers. All right, so I can leave that on, I can turn it off, whatever you would like. Let's maybe just leave that on, I guess. But what we're gonna do is, like I said, we wanna find schools, and we wanna just look at the crashes that are happening near schools. So how I'm gonna do that is I'm actually going to find the schools. I'm gonna, Google their addresses, or maybe I know where they are, and I'm gonna locate them here on our map. And then I'm gonna use the circle filter to apply a radius around that school, and that's how I'm going to capture those crashes near the school. So I have the address here that I've copied already. So I'm gonna show you how you can do this. So over here, again, down on this map toolbar, you'll see this little magnifying glass, and when you hover over that, it pops into a search bar. And this is how you can actually find specific addresses on the map. So I had the address of a Dayton school already, so I'm gonna paste that in there. And if I click that, that's gonna bring me right to this Ruskin Elementary School. Now, again, note that this is not adding a filter. It's simply just taking me to a location on the map. Now, to include this crash as I'm building this report, I'm going to want to do a circle. I can either do a polygon, but for this one, I want all of my schools that I'm including to be following the exact same measurements, and that can be a little bit harder to do with a polygon, since you'd have to draw it and you'd have to make sure it's the same size every time. So you could do a polygon, but it's a little more difficult. So that's why I'm going to be using the circle filter, and the circle filter is also on this map toolbar. It's the one that looks like a circle. Down here on the map toolbar, come down to the one that looks like a circle, click that, and this is where we're going to place the center of the circle. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click right on the elementary school, and you'll notice that's going to place by default a circle with a radius of 250 feet. You can edit that. So this has actually applied a filter, unlike the map search, but this is showing up in the filter bar. So very similar to the polygon tool, except I don't have to draw it. It's just going to be a perfect circle every time, and we decide the radius. So by default, that's going to be 250 feet, like I mentioned, but we are going to do, let's say we want to capture all of the crashes happening within 1,000 feet of a school. So I'm going to come up here into the filter bar and just type in where it says 250. If you just highlight that, you'll actually be able to type in there, and you can type any number. Then you can simply press enter, and now that's going to change our circle from 250 foot radius to 1,000 feet. And now I'm able to capture all of the crashes happening within 1,000 feet of this school. So I was already interested in doing this. This is going to take me quite a while to build out this report. I've done this work ahead of time. So I'm going to actually open up that report, but I just wanted to show you how you can do that. So if you had the addresses on hand, you could find them with the map search and place those circle filters on them. So I'm going to go ahead and open that saved query that I had already. Let me just do all categories. Dayton near school crashes. And I've already done this work here. So you can see I went in and I found the schools in Dayton, and I've applied those circle filters over the schools, and each one is 1,000 feet. So now what I've done is I've built a report of my near school crashes in this city. And here's a good example. I know we had this question earlier with double counting, but as you can see, these 3 schools are all right next to each other, and they do overlap, but we're not double counting those crashes. So like Greg had mentioned earlier. All right. So the other thing I wanted to do with this report, and as you can see, and this is a good tip too, like if you're sharing queries with your colleagues, it's always nice to take a look at that filter bar and just take a look at what other filters have been applied. So for this specific report, I decided that I only wanted to build this report for crashes happening near schools during the school year. So what I did was I added the month of year filter, and I excluded July and June, since school is out of session during those entire months. So you can always take a look when you're sharing and opening shared queries, take a look at the filters that are applied, just so you know exactly the data that you're looking at. You'll also notice, because we have so many filters applied here, when you have more than 5 filters applied in a query, we display the option to actually hide those filters. So if you click that hide filter, that's going to just decrease the filter bar so they're not coming down so low, and you can just bring them back. But it can be nice if you already know what filters are there and they're kind of cluttering your view, you can simply just hide those or bring them back. All right. And I do believe this query that I have opened, this query is shared with everybody. So if you were to go into your saved queries library and you wanted to look at this one, it's just called Dayton near elementary school crashes, if you wanted to pull that up and make a copy so you can follow along with what we're doing. Or if you just want to pull it up to look at it, I definitely recommend following along. All right. So like I said, this is kind of a lot of work. So I've already done that work beforehand, but I only did that work one time. So yes, it was a lot on the front end, but now I can open this report whenever I want, and it's here, and I can reference it, and I can look at how these near school crashes are changing over time. I can look at all sorts of different metrics for that. And this is where we're going to get into editing our metrics sidebar. So when you're building a report or a query, by default, the metrics that show up here in the metrics sidebar, those are the ones that ODOT has selected, and for every new query, they're going to be the same. There are other metrics that you can bring into your metrics sidebar, so it just depends on what you want to see. So to edit your metrics sidebar, you're going to come up here, and we should be by default in the metrics tab, and you're going to come over here to the right-hand side and select that gear icon. It's in the same place that the plus sign icon is in Chart Builder. It just changes depending on what tab you're on, but it should be a gear icon when you're in the metrics sidebar. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. That's going to bring up the Manage Metrics pop-up. And we're going to go ahead for this example. This was a saved query, so it had the metrics in. I'm going to restore to default to show you how you can add and drop different metrics. So we can go ahead and click Restore to Default. These are the default metrics that ODOT has decided we want all new queries to have these metrics in here by default. So you can see it's just a couple of these. They're very handy, but depending on the work you're doing, you might want completely different metrics, right? So you have the ability to add any other metric that you would like. If you don't even want to have any of the defaults here, you can actually clear them all. And now we're starting completely from scratch. So over here on the left-hand side, this is going to be the metrics that we've added. You see it has this little added button. And over here on the right-hand side, these are the metrics we have to choose from. And to add a metric, you simply click the little plus sign that shows up right next to the metric here on the right-hand side. So I'm going to bring back those default ones, and we're going to use that as a starting place. So I think that's all helpful information for this report, but there's a couple of things that I want to add as well. So keep in mind, we're looking at near school crashes. So I want to definitely look if there are pedestrian crashes in that. So I'm going to type in here pedestrian and add the pedestrian involved metric. And by default, any of the metrics that you've added are going to show up at the bottom of this list, but you can click this little these little dots next to it, and you can reorder the metrics in any order that you would like. So we can drag that all the way up to the top if we would like. I also would like to look at the hour, the date and time of the crash. I'm curious the hour of day these crashes are happening. So I'm going to type in date, and I'm going to find the one that has hour of day in the parentheses. And I'm having a hard time. Let's see, we have day of month, day of week. I'm wondering hour of crash, that might be it. I do know we are having a little bit of an issue with some of our system filters, and that hour of day one might be impacted. We were looking at that this morning. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and add the hour of crash. And I'm actually going to drag that right under crash date, year. I want all of my time metrics to be together. I also want to look at the month of the crash. Now, obviously, we are filtering to exclude June and July. So any crashes that happen in those summer months will not show up over here in our metrics. And in addition to pedestrian, I also want to look if there were any bicycle involved. So I'm going to come up here and drag that to the top, click apply. And now as you scroll down, you will see that the metrics that you've added show up in the order that you added them. And you can scroll down and look at the different metrics that you have here. And yeah, it looks like that hour of crash maybe is not what we were wanting. So I'm going to go ahead and just.
I'm not sure what's going on, Lauren. It's pulling up, excuse me, it's pulling up in mine. So just typed in hour. There you go. It wasn't showing up for you before. You're not losing your mind.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's always nice to have it screen recording and other people witness this. All right, so we are going to add that hour of day, which is going to show us the time. And now you can scroll down and let that load for a minute. And now we can look at the actual time these crashes are happening. Maybe we would expect to see them happening, you know, morning school drop-off or after school activities, getting home. So I definitely want to capture that here in this report. So this was already a saved query, but I have made changes to it. Anytime you've made changes in a saved query, you can always also just do a gut check of this. Up in the top right, this save button will come back to the color blue when you have made changes. So I'm gonna go ahead and click save. And when you have no new changes, it'll be like grayed out and you won't be able to, won't be able to save it because there's no changes to save. Another thing to note, sometimes you find yourself within a saved query and you are making changes and you didn't want to make those changes, right? You didn't mean to be making those changes in the saved query. Maybe you forgot to make a copy. At any point, let's say I did make all those changes, you can always make a copy of the query. And that's going to function like a save as feature. So it's going to copy all of the changes you've made to that saved query and pull them into a new query. And if you ever go back into the original query, if you haven't saved, it's going to leave the original query untouched then, as long as you have not overridden that previous save. So just a little note. All right. I have now built my near school crashes report here in Dayton. I've added the queries that I want, and I would like to share this out with some of my colleagues in the community. I can either share the query with them if they have crash query access, but maybe I'm doing a presentation and I'd like to download an actual summary report. To do that, you're going to come back up to the download. Again, that's right next to the data extents. This is where we did the comparison report earlier, but there's also the option to do a summary report. And if you click that, it's just going to do exactly that. It's going to generate a report that's a summary of the query you've created. It's going to show what here is displayed on your map. It's going to have all of the filters that you've applied, and it's going to have all of the metrics that you've added here into the metrics sidebar. Additionally, and we didn't for this example, but if you had built any charts, you would have the option to include those charts and they would show up down here at the bottom underneath all of your metrics. You can save and download this report the exact same way you saved and downloaded the comparison report. It's going to download a PDF to your computer and it's going to save it to your reports within the application. All right, I'm going to pause here. Greg, are there any questions that we should address?
Yeah, there's a couple. Sorry, I'm trying to get a resolution on one of them right now. We did have a question. Jay said that none of the layers are working for him when he tries to turn them on. I switched my account around to a couple of different account types and it seemed to be loading for me. So this is kind of a call to everyone else. If it's not working for anyone else, let us know in the questions and we can dig into it. Jay, you may want to try just signing out and signing back in. Sometimes that works. You also might, depending on what layer you are turning on, you might need to be zoomed in a little bit more. So Lauren, if you want to show kind of how to change the zoom setting on there.
Yeah. So Good call out. So if you're adding like an asset, like, so this is now going to show barriers, we're zoomed way too far out to see it. So you can either zoom in and try, and then it'll start to show up, but you can actually change the layer settings. So if you just click on that little color box next to the layer option, you can change the zoom option. So you can make it a little far out, you can go even more in, and you can change those options. So we can zoom that one all the way out, and now we'll see those barriers show up sooner, and we don't have to be zoomed in as far to see. The other thing too with the layers, sometimes it takes a second for them to show up. I had that happen to me earlier as well. And if you just kind of zoom in and out on the screen, it'll kind of shake some things loose and get those layers to populate. So just a couple of different things to try. The other thing too, if you're ever encountering any kind of issues like that, I find it's really helpful to just refresh my screen. And that kind of helps get those things to work properly. But even if you've tried all those things and it's still not working, you can always reach out to us and we can dig in and see if there's a bug or anything like that.
Yeah. So again, if anyone else is experiencing those issues, let us know. Jay, if you're still not able to get it to work, I don't want this to be dismissive. If you're still not able to get it to work, again, shoot us an email, support@newmetric.com. And I'd be happy to help you get that resolved. So thanks for letting us know. We did have another question come through around, so David asked, can crashes be sorted by the age of the victim? Like, is there a way to create a map of children that are struck by vehicles? So, like, there is a way to create, I think we have young driver related. We don't, one of the problems I'm kind of going back and forth with Brent on this as well. So I don't know, Brent, if you want to add any color, feel free to hop in, but we don't currently have a way to look at the individuals involved in crashes. We have driver level information, but we don't really have like a unique identifier for people in the data set. So it makes that kind of person level information a little bit more challenging. We have some, but it's kind of limited. So currently I am not able to find a way to put together like a show me all crashes where any child of a certain age was involved, whether they were an occupant or they were struck by a vehicle or whatever. It doesn't look like we have that data available at the moment.
And I can jump in, Greg.
Yeah.
If there's a specific data request that you're interested in that you can't create with the data currently in the system, we don't share every single field of data that we have into this application. So if there's something specific that you're not able to do, you can send me an email and we can figure something out. Because with the data we have, we could do that. It would just take a little tweaking, make a query specific to what you're looking for. But I don't think there's a way to do that currently with the data that's in here.
Yeah, no, good call out, Brent. And actually, to kind of build on that, these kind of requests, I love these requests. Just because we don't have a way to do it currently doesn't mean that there's not a way to do it. So like reach out to us and we can always work with Brent, and usually we can figure out something that will get you the data that you need. So, in the future, as you're working on these kind of projects, reach out to us through the chat, shoot us an email, reach out to Brent directly. We're always happy to help you come up with ways to get the data that you need. So good question, David. We'll keep looking into that one. This question comes up quite a bit. Pong asked, will the crash dot be counted for both regions if the dot is on the boundary line? So if we apply like a geo filter or a polygon filter, what about a crash that's on the line? We split some pretty fine hairs here in the tool. We don't have lines. So it is on one side of the line or the other. So we don't really have an issue where it's going to show up on the line. If it is like down to the millimeter, then I think we will count it as inside if it falls precisely on that line. But realistically, that's a level of precision that isn't present in the crash data anyway. These locations are not, down to the millimeter accurate. They're kind of general crash locations. So that's the way that our system is programmed. That's not really a super big issue, Pong, but good question. Thanks for asking it. Brenton, this is a good one for you. Caroline asked, are we supposed to use this AASHTO tool in place of the ODOT CAM tool? So I don't know if you want to speak to that, Brent.
No, kind of two separate things. This essentially replaces GCAT. So what you would access through TIMS, the GCAT module in TIMS to find, analyze, download crash data. That's what this application is doing. You can do a lot of the things in here that are also displayed similarly in the CAM tool, but this isn't intended to replace the CAM tool. You can download, as Lauren showed, the data in a format that you can then import into the CAM tool to then populate all the tables and charts. And that way you can load that then into ECAT. But this is essentially a way to visualize crash data similarly to GCAT and be able to import it into the CAM tool, not replace the CAM tool. Hopefully that's clear.
Thanks, Brent. Let's see. We had another question, Brent. Sorry to put you on the spot, but hey, might as well. Jeremy asked, is there a best way to get information on the at-fault driver? So actually, sorry, Brent, I'm not sure I have enough information to really even answer that question yet. So Jeremy, I'm not sure what information specifically you're looking for, a little more kind of context around what you're trying to report on, and then we can absolutely look at getting an answer for you on that one. So good question. I like where you're going. I think there's too many possible answers. A little more info on what you're looking for would be great. So
yeah, and a lot of the filters like that you're thinking of, you can just start typing into the filter bar. If you just start typing fault, a couple fields will come up. So yeah, depending on what the question is, hopefully those fields, you might be able to find what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yep. Andrew followed up. He had the question earlier about the discrepancy between GCAT data and AASHTOWare. He said that he was able to go through and confirm that the data is consistent. Looks like there might have been an issue with the polygon. Yeah, that's one of the things with the polygon is there's kind of an inherent imprecision in it. So if you're trying to do like A/B comparisons, my recommendation would be maybe use something like your route and your mile pointer, log mile extents. That would be a good way to kind of more reliably create a duplicable report. Polygons are great, but they're inherently imprecise. So that being said, though, Andrew, if you ever do run up against any issues like this and you do want help, or anyone, if you want to help kind of, hey, the numbers don't quite make sense, we're absolutely here to help out. So see, we did have one more question, Brenton, and then I think there's a couple more that we'll kind of wrap up with at the end here. But Jeremy asked, is Unit 1 considered the at-fault vehicle, or is it possible that Unit 2 can be the at-fault vehicle as well?
The majority of the time, the officer fills out the report to where Unit 1 is at fault, but it is possible for other units to be at fault. And I think for this application, for most of the crashes, I think we give you data for like Unit 1s through Unit 3, maybe Unit 2. So we don't have all the data in here for every unit, although you can click on the crash reports and find the units. It just not all the data might be there. But yeah, to answer your question, other units can be at fault, but the majority of the time it's Unit 1.
Good question. I think that ties back to Jeremy's question from earlier around finding information for the at-fault vehicle. So, yeah, thanks. Thanks, Brenton, and thanks, Jeremy, for the follow-up on that. All right. Okay, a couple more questions, but I think we can get to those in a little bit, Lauren. So I'll kick it back to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, we're going to go into our next example. This will be our last example in the tool, and then I'll show you a couple more little features, and then we can wrap up the remainder of the time left just with answering questions. So just to give you a little overview. All right, for this example, I'm looking to find the intersection in Toledo that's going to have the highest number of crashes. This was brought up earlier too about like ranking different segments or intersections. That is definitely part of our network screening tool, which is a separate application than Crash Query, and we will be training on those tools in the coming months. They're not scheduled yet, so don't panic. You will definitely receive information once those get on the calendar. But in the meantime, I did want to show how you can do a similar screening in Crash Query. So for this one, we just want to find the intersection in Toledo that's showing the highest number of crashes. So it's not going to have as much functionality as like our network screening application would. So keep that in mind. Like they are just two fundamentally different tools. But that is the goal that we're coming to the tool with right now for this example. So like I mentioned, I'm going to be looking in Toledo. So we're going to start by adding the filter that's going to show us just the crashes happening in that area. So we're going to go ahead and use city and search Toledo and apply that filter. And now we're looking just at the crashes that are happening up here in Toledo. And like I mentioned, I wanted to look just at the crashes that are happening at a specific intersection. So there's a couple different ways to do that. So maybe I want to look, I want to start by looking at just the crashes that were intersection involved. So over here in our metrics sidebar, all of these metrics are also filters for the most part. So you can come in here and you can actually hover over that and you'll see it'll pop up with the option add a filter. So you can actually add filters from the metrics sidebar. So I'm over here and I want to add this intersection involved filter. I can come over here, I can just click that and that's going to automatically apply that filter for me. It's the same thing as doing it up here. If I were to find ODA custom filters, find intersection involved, it's the same thing. You can also, I think there is just the intersection one separately, intersection involved. So however you want to add that filter, I did just want to show that you can add filters from over here in the metrics sidebar. All right, so now I'm looking at all of the crashes in Toledo that the crash report said an intersection was involved in that crash. I'm getting a little bit more narrowed down, but this isn't really helping me find the specific intersection. So I'm going to keep narrowing down and see what else we can do. So I'm going to add another filter. This is a really handy one that you might want to, make note of. It's called the maintenance _ authority _ description filter. So right over here, maintenance authority description. If you just start to type maintenance, it'll pop up. I'm going to click that. What this does is now it's only going to show me the crashes that occurred on roadways that are under the jurisdiction of one of these agencies. So let's say I'm working for the city of Toledo. I only am curious in the roadways that are owned by the city. So I'm going to go ahead and apply municipal highway agency. Maybe I'm doing the opposite. Maybe I only want to look at the ones maintained by ODOT or the county. Whatever you're looking for, this filter is a really good one to narrow down your search. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and apply municipal highway agency. And now this is going to narrow it down even more. Now it's only showing me the crashes, the intersection involved crashes that are where the maintenance authority is the municipal highway agency. And this is happening in the city of Toledo. So we're getting pretty narrowed down, but I still want to find the specific intersection. So there's a couple different ways to do this. So I'm going to come over here in the metrics sidebar. We were editing this in our last example, but as a reminder, in your metrics sidebar, if you come over here to this gear icon on the far right side of the screen over by the metrics, that's going to allow you to manage the metrics that are showing up. So here we have the ones by default, but there's a couple more that I want to go ahead and add into this metrics sidebar. So I'm going to come in here and search, and I'm going to find the one that says combined intersection ID. I'm going to add that, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it to the top, and I'm going to click apply. And now this is going to show me the intersection ID for these crashes. So already right off the bat, I can see, looks like this intersection, obviously I don't expect you to know what that is. Kudos to you if you do, but it looks like there are 251 crashes that have happened at that intersection. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that, and you'll notice it applied it as a filter. Now we're going to just look at the crashes that have happened at this intersection. And here'd be a good example of when I'd maybe want to hide crashes, because these dots are actually blocking the name of this roadway up here. So I'm going to pull those crashes out. Now I can see the crashes are happening here at the intersection of the Airport Highway and South Burn Road. So now, while this didn't make any sense to me, now I know this intersection ID is referring to this intersection here. I'm going to go ahead and bring those crashes back. And this is a good way to find that intersection. So now I have found the intersection in Toledo that has the highest number of crashes, but there's a couple of caveats here to note. So keep in mind that when you are adding filters, you are only seeing the filters, meaning, sorry, excuse me. We're only seeing the crashes that apply to these that apply to the filters applied. So for example, if there is a crash that occurred here at this geo point, it may not be showing up because it may not have had this actual intersection ID applied to it. So what I want to do to capture those crashes is I want to actually just draw a polygon over this area. And then I'm going to actually, oh, and it's going to exit out on me. And then I want to actually drop some of these filters I have so that I can make sure that I'm not excluding anything. And the polygon's giving me a little bit of a hard time. So I'm going to just throw a circle filter on there. And I'm going to just make it, we'll go 275. And now what I'm going to do, so you'll see we're looking at 251 crashes here. I'm going to drop this intersection ID filter, and I'm going to see if that brings in any more crashes. So you can see it brought in 2 additional crashes that happened at this intersection, but where the intersection ID wasn't actually included in that crash report. All right, I'm going to pause here. I want to make sure, are we at time? Is this scheduled to 11?
Yeah, Lauren, we are at time. Yeah.
Oh, I apologize. I thought we had another half hour. Okay, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Do we have any more questions that we want to answer with the remainder of our time, Greg? Is there any more questions that came in?
We had a couple questions around the CAM tool being updated. Yes, the CAM tool is going to be updated with the links, adding the new links to AASHTOWare Safety. Cody asked a question around downloading multiple crash reports. You can actually only just download them individually from like the raw table. So if you go to raw table and then just click on them individually right there, that's the best way to do it.
We're adding a button in the CAM tool. Once you have them in the CAM tool, we're adding a button that will download them all at once instead of individually in the next update, hopefully. So.
Oh, that'll be great. Huh. So, and then Pong asked the question, can I choose the intersection related crashes based on the locations of the dots using my own radius? Yes, that's actually what Lauren just did right there with that circle filter. So that allows you to kind of define that intersection yourself. So,
I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to show how to message us if you do have additional questions. So I know we've been plugging our email. You can definitely email us and that'll reach our team. You can also start a chat with us in the application. So if you come up menu, you'll see this chat with support. That's going to pop up this little chat window and this is real people, right? So David, who's here on the call with us, he will respond to this message, and we typically try to get back to you within the same day during business hours. So, and keep in mind, we are here in Utah, so 2 hours, we are a little bit behind you guys, but we do have extended hours for our chat support, but this is not an AI or anything. This is a real person. So you can chat your question here. It'll open up a chat with us, and look, David's already responding. So that's a really good way, especially if you have just a quick question like, hey, I can't remember, like, where's the circle filter? And we can just get back to you really quickly. If you do have a really simple question like that, again, just a reminder, if you come up to the top right where that question mark little icon is, that's going to take you to the crash query overview article, which can probably get you any answers you're looking for if it's related to like a crash query feature we went through today.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Well, yeah, I think that pretty much does it. There's a couple more questions in here. We'll follow up with you guys individually with those. And if you have any more questions, you can let us know. But yeah, I think we're good.
Thank you for everybody's time and attention on the webinar today, and to our great presenters. I'm looking forward to future sessions, and when we get those confirmed, we'll definitely advertise those out to everyone. So have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.